Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about winners and losers for the rookies who were taken in the NFL draft based on their landing spot.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so why don't you start us off? Who do you got as your first winner?
Yeah, my first winner, Steve, is going to be wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, there's a lot of rumors swirling. They were going to trade out of that pick, let somebody go take a quarterback, but they stayed at 4, made the pick, and they get Marvin Harrison Jr. And we've seen Kyler Murray support a number one wide receiver before with DeAndre Hopkins, just absolutely peppered him with targets. I'd expect Marvin Harrison to kind of get that same respect. You know, we saw Marquise Hollywood-Brown go to the Kansas City Chiefs now. Rondale Moore is also gone, and Marquise Brown himself is vacating 100-plus targets just right there. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has got a lot of opportunities. Not too much around him. There's Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. So I think this was one of the better landing spots he could have had.
Is there any part of you that's concerned that he hasn't signed his NFLPA licensing thing?
And all that is interesting. You know, how these new age NFL players are treating different things, man. We haven't really seen this before, so this is pretty interesting. But I'm not too concerned. I think you know they'll figure it out, and I think he'll ultimately sign it.
I just wonder if there are any ramifications if he doesn't sign it. And I mean, he took a visit. I think what was it with Arizona and Chicago? Those are the only two that he took visits with.
And I'm not sure, but I don't think he took many visits, and obviously, you know, Combine didn't do his, you know, press conference there, so, and he wasn't at the pro day, you know, Ohio State pro day either. So just kind of, those guys said it just interesting. You know, Caleb Williams doesn't do the medical stuff at the Combine. We hadn't really seen that before. Marvin Harrison's doing his own thing, but you know, I think he was advised by his dad, and being a former NFL wide receiver, I just think they let the tape and what he showed in his stats speak for themselves.
Yeah, a couple unorthodox moves on his part. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if anybody gets spooked by it or not. But landing spot wise, you know, it could have been far worse. New England, New York, it could have been far worse.
Yeah, that's why, honestly, you know, not being the biggest Kyler Murray fan, but at least I've seen him support a number one wide receiver before. So I think that's why it turns out to be a pretty good spot for him.
So my first winner is a guy who I was down on before, and now I'm up on. That's going to be wide receiver Keon Coleman going to the Buffalo Bills. And this is not because I'm a Bills homer. That's not why I'm having this be the pick. Well, here's the thing. Look, I mean, can you blame me? He fills so many targets that are vacated. Gabe Davis is no longer there. Stephon Diggs is no longer there. I thought the Bills would draft 2 receivers. They only drafted 1. They brought in Curtis Samuel. They've got Khalil Shakir. They've got Kincaid. But the more and more I hear about it, the Bills really wanted Keon Coleman. They were basically playing the game of moving back so far so that they could still take him. I'm convinced if they never trade with the Chiefs, they would have taken Keon Coleman at the 28th pick.
Yeah, it definitely sure seems that way. I mean, what's telling is not only did they trade down once with the Chiefs, they traded down again out of the first round to still take Keon Coleman, knowing that, you know, another team's, you know, Carolina decided to move up and get Xavier Legette. But the fact that they didn't want either of those or even trading up for Brian Thomas Jr., which a lot of Bills fans wanted, that really just showed you they zeroed in on Keon Coleman, really wanted him, and they got their guy, like you said.
My biggest knock with him was his speed and his separation, right? I think he was a sub 4.6 40. I know you don't care about 40s. He ranked 15th in his group. But if you look at some of the other metrics, you're looking at NFL Next Gen stats here, right? He ranked 3rd in slants at 19.45 miles an hour. Daggers, he was 4th. Go routes, he was tied for 2nd, over 20 miles an hour. And slot strikes, he was 2nd. So, and we saw what the guy was able to do with the gauntlet drill, which Puka Nacua, if you remember Puka Nacua, who he is, or he was, he had a phenomenal rookie year, and he had a slow 40 time, but he crushed in the gauntlet. So not saying that he's going to be him, but he's a whole different type of receiver than Josh Allen's ever had. This is the type of guy who can get above the rim, and he could get a ton of touchdowns just being a red zone threat. He's got great hands. So honestly, I can't think of a better place he could have went to, and that's why for me he has to be a winner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he ends up, Josh Allen, good quarterback, and like they said, the vacated targets with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis being gone. This is a prime spot for Kane Coleman, but all that stuff at the combine, man. Nobody's guarding you. You're in the tight clothing there, and everyone's losing weight to try to run fast for the combine. So there's not everything's perfect for the combine. That's why I don't take a lot of stock into it. But you just watch the tape and how this guy competes. I think he'll play faster with actually guys chasing him. Competitiveness gets a little involved. But like you said, Josh Allen's never had a guy with the catch radius where, he could just lob one up to him and let this guy go make a play. But so being that the Bills didn't take two wide receivers, you think they have a strong belief in Khalil Shakir and becoming that number 2 receiver?
Well, I mean, I think Samuel's too, but I think they'll use Shakir in the slot.
You don't think Samuel will be that slot player?
No.
Interesting.
Are you enjoying this episode? Well, if you are, go ahead and show some support to our channel by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. We've got some great content going on throughout the offseason, and you're not going to want to miss it. All right, Joe. So who is your other winner?
All right, Steve. My other winner is going to be quarterback J.J. McCarthy. And, you and I talked about it, Minnesota being the prime landing spot for one of these rookie quarterbacks. Well, that sweepstakes winner goes to J.J. McCarthy. And, he gets to play with Kevin O'Connell, got Justin Jefferson there, T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, who they just drafted last year. Then, at least for this year, they got Aaron Jones, a running back, who's a capable pass catcher who he can dump it out down to if he's in trouble. Now, we are talking about from a dynasty perspective. They did bring in Darnold for 1 year, gave him $10 million. We'll see if JJ gets to start right away or if they let Sam Darnold run the show for at least this year, or at least he starts. Maybe JJ comes in, in support of him if Sam Darnold doesn't play well or whatever. But JJ McCarthy's 21. So even if he does have to sit a year, he'll be 22 and still have plenty of years ahead of him to produce for you for fantasy.
I anticipate McCarthy's most likely starting in around maybe October, maybe early November. I don't think that he'll be the starter right out of the gate unless he proves to be, the guy coming out of training camp, which is totally possible. I think he's capable. But at the end of the day, I'm with you. I mean, we said when any quarterback went to Minnesota, it was going to be a winner. It was the best landing spot out of them all. And not just because of the talent that you talked about. I think partnering with Kevin O'Connell, I think could really bring him to the next level. And McCarthy wanted to go there.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he talked about staying in the Midwest, plus just being able to play with a guy like Kevin O'Connell as your head coach who's going to call plays for you. I mean, it was amazing what Kevin O'Connell was able to do last year after Kirk Cousins went down. Josh Dobbs comes over and didn't have barely any time to prepare for, with the playbook. And heck, he didn't even know the names of the teammates he was throwing passes to. And yet they still went out there and won games. They also won games with Mullins at quarterback as well. So I think J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell, it'll be interesting to see how they do together.
So my next winner is going to be running back Jonathan Brooks, a guy who, in my view, is now the bona fide number 1 rookie running back heading in this class for Dynasty. We didn't know, is it going to be Trey Benson? Is it going to be Jonathan Brooks? Is it going to be Blake Corum? Well, in my view, he landed in the best landing spot in Carolina. And part of the reason why is because I really like the partnership with him and Dave Canales. We saw what Dave Canales was able to do with Rachaad White. He's able to have a career year and really utilize him in the rushing and the receiving game. So now you got Brooks coming into Carolina. I think he's going to utilize him as a dual threat running back. And I'm not really that concerned about the running backs in the backfield. Look, I mean, the two guys that are there, this is a regime change. It's a new general manager. It's a new head coach. Scott Fritter is no longer there. Frank Reich's no longer there. They brought in Miles Sanders during free agency. They thought he was going to be a big vocal point in the offense. Fell flat. You got Chuba Hubbard. He's got 1 year left on a rookie deal. Brooks may take a little while to get healthy. We don't know. He's recovering from an ACL. But when he gets back, we're talking a guy who I think has the upside to be an RB1, possibly. And, think about it. I mean, the running back landscape is going to be changing here. It changes all the time. You got guys like Saquon, Henry, McCaffrey. These guys aren't getting any younger. So Brooks could easily by even this time next year in 2025, he could really rise up.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, once he does recover from the ACL injury, like you mentioned. But this isn't a guy that has a lot of tread in his tires either. You know, Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson were both at Texas playing ahead of him. So he hasn't been utilized a ton in college. So that allows him to, really be utilized more in the NFL. And he has a guy who hasn't taken a lot of hits. And hopefully that, I know even though he did tear his ACL, hopefully that helps with his NFL longevity.
So head over to the losers, Joe. Who do you got there?
Yeah, so my first loser is going to be wide receiver Malik Neighbors. And I know that might sound crazy just because of how talented this guy is, and I'm not knocking his talent, but I just don't know if I trust the Giants to be able to get the most out of this guy. It's an unstable regime that they have between coaching GM. Is Brian Dable and Joe Sheen going to make it past this year? Definitely in question. Who's going to be their quarterback if Daniel Jones, gets hurt again? He's got that neck injury, or if he just looks like Daniel Jones, the guy who hasn't been that impressive, other than that first year with Dable where they were able to make it to the playoffs and win on the road against the Vikings. I definitely have my doubts, but Dable, I feel like he could design some things to get him there, but I just don't trust Daniel Jones.
I don't know if you watched any of Neighbors after he was drafted and everything else. Even like he's dapping up, Dayball and Shane visiting the New York Giants facility. He does not look excited at all. He does not look like he wants to be there. I even remember there was like a stream where I think it was Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels joking around with him. And they're like, what about New York? And he like ended the stream. I don't know. I just think it was a while back ago. He was talking about one team and then it was another team. But I think at the end of the day, Neighbors is a guy who I think is uber talented. I thought he was 1B to Marvin Harrison's 1A, but I'm with you with this landing spot. I don't like it at all. I don't have any faith in Daniel Jones. I'm really concerned about that neck injury going forward. So to me, you're going to have to hope for. It's tough, right? The question is, how much do you bring him down? Right? Do you bring him down? Do you have Keon Coleman, right, who goes to the best landing spot possible for him? Do you have him go ahead of a guy like Malik Neighbors? Malik Neighbors is a far more talented receiver, but Keon Coleman goes to a better landing spot. That's a tough decision for general managers out there.
Yeah, there's a good point. At least at the very least, I think, I think most people would probably have Roma Dunze ahead of Malik Neighbors at this point, which some had even before the draft. But I think, now they really would, even though, Odunze is rookie year. I don't know if it'll be there just because he's got some guys ahead of him, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. But in the future, though, that could change because, Keenan Allen's only there for 1 year, so that can definitely change for him. But I still wouldn't move Neighbors too far down just because of his talent. And even though I don't like his situation in New York, and Daniel Jones at quarterback and heck, even Drew Lock if he comes in. But I think the talent still could win out there.
So my first loser is going to be tight end Brock Bowers. Guy who I was really excited about in our league, Joe. It's a deeper league, 16 teams, tight end premium. This is a guy I viewed as a top 5 pick. Now going to Las Vegas Raiders. To me, I find it concerning. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I understand you had Gardner Minshew, but it's not like he really kind of targeted the tight end to begin with. I think that, you got Antonio Pierce, who did a great job in his first time as an interim coach. He's more of a defensive-oriented guy. Luke Getsy, I think, is the offensive coordinator. Not too much confidence in him. So what is it going to look like for Bowers going forward? I think he's a very talented player, so I'm cautious to bring him down too far. But to me, it's so puzzling. I mean, you have Michael Mayer. I know you don't think that he's that great, but he was highly touted at Notre Dame. Guy who was in the conversation of being the number 1 tight end drafted over guys like Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta. So to me, he was very talented. I thought there was a lot of promise. He didn't do very well in his rookie year. But now you got Bowers and him, and I just think it makes it messy.
Yeah. Well, I hope Mayer likes to block because I think that's what he's going to kind of do.
He's a great blocker. I mean, that's one of his calling cards.
Right, and I think he's going to be doing quite a bit of that. And Bowers is going to be handling the receiving duties. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned Luke Getzey. Do you think that will help Bowers just in the fact that we saw, Cole Kmet these last couple of years kind of come out and do some decent things, and that was, with Getzey there in
It's
Chicago.
possible. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, Getzey, I don't think is the most creative offensive guy, but seems like they like to utilize the tight end position in his offense. So you mentioned Gardner Minshew not utilizing the tight ends. Just wonder if that might be just a scheme
It's more
thing that happened
scheme. Yeah.
with the Colts, and wonder if I mean, obviously, you draft Bowers at number 13, you'd be an absolute dummy not to figure out how to get this guy the ball. And most people don't even consider him a tight end. They just say he's a wide receiver or just a receiving option.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they probably, was his best player available on their board, which I understand, and that's what some teams do, and I can't knock them for it.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as I know the quarterback situation is not great. Gardner Minshew is definitely serviceable, but the competition, I mean, it's Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. Yes, I know that you're gonna say they got Gallup, and
Kobe
I'm not scared.
Myers.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers. Those guys don't really scare me, and I think Hunter Renfrow that they released, and now they need somebody to work the middle of the field, and I think that easily could be Bowers.
So who's your other loser, Joe?
Alrighty, my other loser, gonna stay at the wide receiver position and gonna go with Adonai Mitchell. And I know I'm higher on Adonai Mitchell than you, Steve, but I wish he would have went to a better landing spot. He goes to the Colts with Anthony Richardson, coming off the injury and his rookie year. Michael Pittman just got a decent sized bag and a decent extension to stay with the Colts as well. And he's obviously going to be the number one wide receiver option. Alec Pierce made some plays down the field last year for them. They also drafted Josh Downs, and they got a plethora of tight ends to utilize in this offense. I just am concerned with how Anthony Richardson's going to be able to get all these guys enough balls, and for Adonai Mitchell to see the volume of production that I would have liked. So due to the lack of the volume, I don't really like the spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's another reason, a different reason why I was not a big fan of him anyways. And honestly, what happened in the draft was kind of a confirmation of what I thought. I mean, there was a lot of smoke around, him as a player. And, the biggest reason why he dropped, was because of how he interviewed with teams. And his draft capital where he was taken was far lower than what we anticipated. We thought he was going to be a first round pick for sure based on the talent. And if you look at even some of the numbers, even like his metrics, there's some concerning ones that make you think that he could be a bust. I mean, he really just came out on 1 year. I mean, he transferred from Georgia. This most recent season was really his only year where he really broke out. So I think for me, I'm with you. I don't know if the offense could support him. He's a talented player. If Pittman wasn't there, I'd consider it, but I don't think so.
Yeah, that's the thing. Pittman coming off of that extension and just staying there, it's like he's clear and obvious the number one guy. And then you bring in Adonai Mitchell. I don't know. I just don't see. And Anthony Richardson being an athletic running quarterback, I just don't see him being able to distribute enough balls to all these guys.
So my other loser is going to be running back Braylon Allen. Talk about a guy who just took a free fall, Joe. This is someone who was heralded as one of the top guys, top 3, top 5, whatever you want to say, in rookie drafts about a year or so ago. People were so excited about it as the next Wisconsin running back. This guy, this is a type of pick that you're glad that you have it because he's going to change your dynasty team. Well, he just got drafted in the 4th round of the New York Jets behind a guy in Breece Hall. I just don't know what you want from this guy. I mean, he can't catch the ball. For his physique, you think he'd play tougher, be able to break more tackles. But in my view, from what I can tell, he doesn't really play that way. That's not his playing style. So I just think he's a glorified handcuff at this point.
Yeah, I think some of the concerns people have is him kind of being the next A.J. Dillon. And I think that's fair because sometimes
I think that's a perfect comparison.
Yeah, it just blows my mind how big these guys are. And yet it seems like they go down so easily. And I just don't know if that's their running style and they just leave themselves open to just get tackled so easily. But they have NFL size and they should be able to just break more tackles and kind of be those better short yardage or goal line backs. And they just aren't. So he just seems truly a handcuff to Breece Hall, and maybe you take a flyer on him and hope that, unless you're a Breece Hall owner, you hope he stays healthy. But if not, at least you have, you can take a flyer on Braylon Allen, and maybe hopefully he turns out to be what we thought he could be prior to this disappointment.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head with that A.J. Dillon comparison. I mean, the guy who never materialized, and I think a similar type of playing style. But even Dillon, though, I think he went in the second round, if I remember correctly. I mean, even he had better draft capital.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I think, I think the Packers even probably had just a better need or wanted him more, I guess, but unless you're the top running backs, we're just seeing now running backs even the best ones, they just wait longer than normal. Unless you're a Bijan Robinson and you get to go in the first round, or Jahmyr Gibbs, I guess.
So that does it for our rookie winners and losers from the NFL draft. In our next episode, it's the veterans' turn. Joe and I are going to be giving our winners and losers. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.